Hello and welcome back to another episode of Weather or Not. I'm your host, Frank Gargione, joined alongside me by forecaster Jonathan Domow on our last episode of the 2026 spring semester. Now, Jonathan, it has been a cool and gloomy start to the week. Can we expect those conditions heading into the weekend?
Well, it's not going to be as gloomy as it was through this past week. However, there's a little bit of rain on Saturday morning, but it'll eventually give way to partly cloudy before giving way to an even sunnier day on Sunday. I'll have more of that in my forecast.
You'll hear from him in just a second, but for now, our nature in the news.
Historic flooding in southern Brazil is leaving a devastating impact after days of relentless rainfall overwhelmed rivers and flooded entire cities. In the state of Rio Grande do Sul, thousands of residents have been forced to evacuate as water levels rose rapidly, submerging homes, roads, and critical infrastructure. Emergency crews have been working non-stop to rescue stranded residents, with some areas only accessible by boat or helicopter. Meteorologists say the flooding was driven by a slow-moving system that dumped an extreme amount of rainfall over a short period of time, a setup that can quickly turn dangerous when it stalls over one region. The disaster is also raising concerns about how warming temperatures may be intensifying rainfall events like this, allowing the atmosphere to hold and release more moisture. As recovery efforts begin, this event is a powerful reminder of how quickly water can become one of the most destructive forces on the planet.
Wildfires fueled by drought are continuing to burn across parts of Georgia and Florida, even as recent rainfall has slowed some of the largest blazes. In southern Georgia, 2 major fires have destroyed more than 100 homes, forcing evacuations and burning tens of thousands of acres, with drought and gusty winds helping flames spread rapidly. Officials say one fire may have been started from a foil balloon hitting power lines, while another was sparked by welding. In some areas, debris left behind from Hurricane Helene has added even more fuel to the fires, complicating containment efforts. Fire crews have made progress with rain, but dozens of new fires have still ignited across the region, showing that the threat is far from over. The fires are also highlighting the growing impact of drought across the southeast, where dry conditions have elevated wildfire risk in places not typically associated with major fire outbreaks. Officials remain concerned that if hot and dry weather returns, conditions could worsen quickly. For now, crews continue focusing on containment while communities assess damage and remain on alert.
A deadly tornado outbreak swept across northern Texas this past weekend, leaving at least 2 people dead and entire neighborhoods in ruins. The hardest hit areas were the towns of Runaway Bay and Springtown, where powerful storms spawned multiple tornadoes late Saturday night. One of those tornadoes reached EF2 strength with winds up to 135 miles per hour, strong enough to tear roofs off homes and destroy buildings and displace families across the region. Emergency crews struggled to reach some victims due to debris-covered roads and downed power lines. And this system wasn't isolated either, as part of the same broader outbreak that produced a violent EF4 tornado near Enid, Oklahoma, showing just how dangerous this stretch of severe weather has been across the southern plains, with cleanup efforts now underway and residents beginning the long process of recovery.
Climate change could become one of the biggest storylines surrounding the 2026 World Cup, not just on the pitch, but in the heat surrounding it. With matches set across North America during the peak of summer, scientists warn dangerous temperatures could pose risks for players, fans, and stadium workers, especially in cities like Dallas, Houston, and Monterey. Studies show many host sites could see heat levels high enough to increase the risk of heat illness. Organizers are already looking at ways to adapt, including hydration breaks, shaded fan areas, cooling stations, and potentially adjusting kickoff times to avoid the worst afternoon heat. For players, extreme temperature can affect endurance, recovery, and even the pace of play, adding a new layer of challenge to the world's biggest sporting event. Experts say the 2026 World Cup may become a test for how climate change impacts major outdoor sports. As global temperatures rise, future tournaments may need new scheduling strategies, redesigned stadiums, and stronger heat safety planning. How organizers manage heat in 2026 could help shape how major sporting events are planned going forward.
We're coming off the heels of a pretty dreary week, but is that set to continue? Well, the short answer is no, but first we're going to look at Friday. We can see there is quite a bit of rain on the map in western and central Pennsylvania. It's going to be raining for most of the day on Friday, and that'll continue into the afternoon. And I put a little stormy out here over the Ohio and Indiana border. They're going to be seeing some thunderstorms that might even turn severe. However, for us here in State College, you can expect a few rumbles of thunder as you're trying to fall asleep, but it's not going to be anything as intense as they're going to be seeing out to our west. And this is all thanks to this system that is moving over central Michigan, and this high pressure over the Virginias is keeping them dry, but we are unfortunately not as lucky. And yes, that is right. There is currently snow on the map here in early May. This is not unheard of for that region, and it might even be mixing down here in the Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse area. However, that will not make its way down south to us here in State College. Now, Saturday, as it might appear to be a washout, I can assure you it's not going to be. This rain is mostly going to steer clear of us. There might be the chance of some early morning showers here in Saturday, but again, not going to be a washout. The theme of Saturday is going to be cloudy and chilly, with temperatures struggling to make it out of the mid-50s, a much different scene than what we were seeing just a few weeks ago, where we were topping out at the 80s. Most of that consistent, widespread rain is going to be south to us in the Virginias, moving up through the Pittsburgh metropolitan area, and then even coming down from the U.S.-Canada border, where again those temperatures are going to be chilly and those clouds are going to be hanging tough. Now, Sunday is my personal pick of the week. It's going to be Sunday, albeit cool, but not as cool as Saturday temperature-wise. You can see there's a big mess of a system that is originating off-screen up in Canada and Minnesota here. It's going to bring some damaging thunderstorms, damaging winds, and severe thunderstorms to parts of the Midwest. However, that is not going to make its way here anytime soon on Sunday. And then additionally, we have a system here in Maine and northern New England. Again, not gonna rain on our parade on Sunday. Now let's take a look at some of those temperatures. Friday is going to be mostly rainy, 56 degrees, and that rain will continue into Friday night, where we can even hear a few rumbles of thunder. But again, I do not believe that is going to turn severe. And take a look at that temperature, 36 degrees. That means we're now talking about some frost when you wake up on Saturday morning. Again, not a freeze, but a frost. Thrives around 36 degrees, just above freezing. So be on the lookout for that Saturday morning. Now, as for the day on Saturday, 55 degrees, partly cloudy. Remember, there is just a small chance of rain in the morning, but the rest of the day is not going to be washed out. Saturday night, we're still looking at partly cloudy, and that should be a moon, not a sun. The sun will not be out Saturday night. 33 degrees. We're getting closer to freeze territory. If it does dip below, then we can expect some freezing on the ground, but for right now, I'm expecting some morning frost. And then Sunday is going to be 58 degrees and sunny. It's my personal pick of the weekend. If you're going to want to get out there and do anything, might need the sweatshirt though. And now we're going to kick it out to Rebecca Newell for a feature about the changes coming to the show next year.
If you've been a Whether or Not viewer for a while, you may have noticed that the crew had no new members at the start of this semester. Since the show's conception all the way back in 2003, Whether or Not has been a student-run program that traditionally brought on new members each semester. Those newcomers learn how to produce the show from experienced students, allowing knowledge to be passed down as graduating members moved on. This semester, however, the absence of new members was intentional. Next semester, Whether or Not is undergoing a transformation. What was once a program limited to a small group of students will soon be open to anyone in the meteorology department interested in broadcasting. The show's format comes with a new name, Front and Center. Frank and Jonathan have some information about the rest of the changes.
So one thing that we would like to do away with is the extended forecast. We just don't see the use in forecasting for the upcoming week on the previous week's Wednesday. So we'd like to do away with that and then add in something like an interview segment, which we're going underneath the Campus Weather Service umbrella, which means we have access to their resources, including the individuals doing their briefings every Monday. So potentially interviewing the person running the briefing and then airing that in the show would be really cool. Additionally, we'd also like to collaborate with the Weather Education Club and potentially do something more educational focused, maybe doing some science experiments or an educational feature. But we mostly want to keep the show relatively the same, leaving in nature and the news, leaving in obviously the Central Pennsylvania forecast, quiz question, and almanac.
Along with updating the format, the show's look and identity will also be getting a refresh.
To put it simply, we think we can make it much more modern than it currently is. Whether or not it has been around for decades, but we feel as though that by putting it underneath the Campus Weather Service umbrella, we can up the ante, so to speak, which includes changing the name, changing the colors, changing the logo, giving it like an all-new, fresh feel that is still going to be as entertaining and engaging as the previous Whether or Not, but with just a whole new twist.
One of the biggest changes, though, is who will be able to take part in the show.
So since Front and Center is now under the Campus Weather Service umbrella, anyone who is in Campus Weather Service is able to join if they have an interest. At the beginning of next semester, I myself will be probably sending out a interest form at the general body meeting, and anyone who's interested can join. So we already have 4 roles: host, feature, forecaster, and editor. I feel like opening up to more people can get the role even if they're not in comm. Front and Center usually tends to be a show with specifically only comm people, but opening it up to everyone. Some people might be inclined, even if they're not in comm, to do host, forecasting, editing, or just doing a feature. I know that adding more people can open up more roles as well. We can have people behind the scenes working cameras, working the graphics. We can have people doing, if we end up doing interviews, we can have someone be interviewing someone, being interviewed themselves. There's a wide range of possibility though.
The expanded format will also give students more hands-on experience with various broadcasting technology.
I would say definitely join if you have any interest of being on camera or behind the scenes or just really working in any type of TV space. The studio is downstairs. Even if you're not on camera, all the graphics, the computers, the control panels are all really high tech.
From updated segments to expanded opportunities, the shift from Whether or Not to Front and Center represents a new chapter in student broadcasting for the Penn State Meteorology Department. For Whether or Not, I'm Rebecca Newell.
What can students expect for this upcoming finals week? I'll tell you in just a moment, but first we're going to take a look at the weekend. Again, I mentioned that those temperatures are going to be sitting around the mid to upper 50s for this weekend. We'll be ending off the week at 56, and keep an eye on that low temperature. 36 degrees is going to create some frost, and thanks to some showers and thunder, the ground is going to be wet, so who knows what's going to happen on Saturday morning. Speaking of Saturday, 55 degrees is your temperature, some scattered clouds, the chance of some rain in the morning, but the day is not going to be a washout, and the rain won't even be impactful in my opinion here. In 33 degrees, if that dips below the freezing mark, we can wake up on Sunday to some freezing on the ground. Sunday, however, is going to be the pick of the weekend. 58 degrees and sunny, much different feel than the weekend. And from this week, where we're looking at a temperature seesaw, we're going to start down here. We're going to come back up on Wednesday and back down below average on Friday. And you'll notice that there is rain icons every single day. Unfortunately, for finals week, it's going to be raining. It's going to be dreary. So hopefully that doesn't impact your studying too much. At least you can enjoy above average temperatures at least one day out of the week. Now we're going to see the quiz answer.
And the answer is D, 2.5 inches of rain. Rain is actually not a factor at all when it comes to classifying a derecho.
That's right, Frank. We're really looking at wind characteristics, which includes 58 mile per hour wind gusts, a 250 mile minimum for the wind damage swath, as well as it needs to be 3 hours long in order to be considered a derecho. And we actually had one here in State College around this time last year that caused pretty considerable damage.
Yeah, we had a lot of power outages across State College, and it got known as the Great State College Blackout of 2025. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have for this episode, but before we go, I'd like to give a special shout out to Rebecca Newell. She is a senior who will be graduating in the next week, and we'd like to thank her for her contributions to the show, and good luck on your next future endeavors. For the last time this semester, we're saying goodbye. Have a good one.